All right. It's no secret that messaging is going to help you make more sales. It's no secret that messaging is going to help you create more engagement on your content. It's no secret that the way in which you communicate affects everything inside of your brain, your funnels, your launches, your emails, your ads. It affects everything. Proper communication, proper messaging can be the root cause of success versus not success, a failed launch or a plateaued launch. When your messaging is dialed in, it's relevant, it resonates, and you're able to create demand, it changes everything inside of your business. And if you're a listener of the podcast, I'm sure you understand that. That's why you're listening, right? Because we dive into messaging. Well, what I wanted to do in today's episode is break down my top 3 sales techniques when it comes to messaging. Because look, messaging can do a lot of things. It can create more engagement. It can create better open rates. It can create lower cost per leads on your ads, but it can also create more sales. So what I wanted to do is throw back a repeat, episode 155, and replay that for you guys right now because it breaks down my top 3 sales techniques, my top favorite 3 sales techniques when it comes to messaging. So if that's interesting to you, well, keep on listening.
Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.
All righty, welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about sales, and we're going to be a little more tactical, I guess, than some of our more metaphysical episodes we've been doing lately, which I love both. So today, what I wanted to do inside of this episode is talk about some of my favorite sales tactics and techniques. And there are obviously way more than just 3, but the 3 that I'm going to go over with you today are ones that I've used a lot inside of 2022. I believe they'll continue to work really well in 2023, 2024. Honestly, these are just timeless things that you should be doing anyways. They're really based off of human psychology. So I don't really see them ever becoming outdated. And so when I hear people talk about sales and different tactics and techniques and things like that, sometimes I hear them, I'm like, that's great, but that's not really going to be relevant in 6 months. And I feel like if we can just get down to the nuts, the bolts, the foundation of how humans process information, well, then we find things that are timeless. And so, certain things that are driven and wired inside of us, survival techniques, survival tactics, things like that have been around for generation after generation after generation. If you can start to use those inside of your messaging, your marketing, I just think it's going to work in any space, in any industry. And so I want to kind of go through what these top 3 sales techniques are. And I'll talk a little bit about how they work and why they work as well. So with that said, let's dive into number 1. And number 1 is probably one that you've heard me talk about a lot and multiple times, and it's learning how to actually create subconscious demand. And this is a great sales tactic because I think the way that most people approach sales is like, hey, I have this thing, or I have this knowledge, or I have this course, or I have this product, and here's all the benefits of it. Heavy duty, great materials, made out of great materials, or I have all these bonuses, I have all these modules, I have all these videos. Or sometimes they talk about the benefits. It'll help you shovel the snow faster, or this course will help you generate more sales faster. It'll help you get rid of limiting beliefs. It'll free you up from feeling stuck, things like that. They focus a lot on benefits. But the problem is that when you focus a lot on benefits, you're not really creating demand. It's more of like luring. So think of it this way. If you were fishing and you wanted the fish to come over to where you were standing or fishing, you could have a lure, and it may look amazing. It may look beautiful. You throw it, you cast it way out into the water, and you're hoping that someone sees it and they're interested in it and they follow it. And so what happens is when we focus a lot on the product itself, or we focus on the benefits that we give, or we try to like build an audience by giving away our knowledge, that's essentially like trying to lure people in based off of certain things, where I want people coming to you because they know that they want to work with you. They know that you can solve their problem. And I don't think a lot of people demonstrate that inside of their marketing or sales conversations. And the difference is that people willingly come to you versus you trying to attract and lure people in and then convert them. So the difference would be, if you want fish to come to you and you're standing on the shore, instead of throwing a lure out there and hoping that they see it and they're attracted to it and they come in, why not put like a shark that eats fish on the other side of the lake? Because guess what? Then the fish aren't going to want to go to that side of the lake anymore. And so what we can do is we can use conversations, or we can use pain points, or we can use problems to be that shark on the end of the water or the other side of the lake. And so when we start to talk about people's problems, why those problems happen, what's causing those problems, what we're doing is we're showing a very big understanding, or clear or accurate understanding of what their current situation is. And when you're able to say like, here's what you're dealing with and here's why it's happening, what starts to happen is they go, oh my God, I do have that problem and I am doing that. And they go, what happens subconsciously is they go, this person knows how to fix the problem. They understand this situation to a T. And what the problem they're talking about is a problem I don't want to have anymore, right? You're that shark at the end of the lake. And so what they do is they come running to you like, hey, you clearly know what you're talking about. Can you help me? So instead of approaching the conversation of like, well, I can help you do this and I can help you do that, and this is what your life could look like they may believe you, they may not. They may trust you, they may not. They may like you, they may not. They may think you can help, they may not. But when you sit there and go, here's a very specific problem that I know you're likely dealing with, and I know you're likely doing this, which is causing the problem. And in order to fix it, you're probably even trying this, and you nail all three of those, their mind automatically goes, this person understands the situation. This person knows and gets what I'm going through. This person clearly knows how to fix it. And so what happens is their trust in your ability to fix a problem starts to go through the roof. And so I always like to think of the selling the pen, that classic sales example here, sell me this pen. What do most people do? They start talking about the benefits. It's high quality. It has beautiful ink, or you're never going to have to buy new ink, or whatever it is. High quality, heavy duty, blah, 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 blah. But instead, what I do is I look at the situation of how do we start to create demand? So maybe I say something like, hey, I want to give you a check last week for $200 for the help you gave me. Can you sign this real quick? Oh, what? You don't have a pen? Well, I can sell you a pen for $2 and you can sign this check and get 200. You want to do that? Well, yeah, it's a no-brainer, right? Or you can say something like, hey, I need to go get your celebrity that you like following is over there. Like, go get their autograph. Oh, you don't have a pen? Here, I'll sell you this one for $2. You're creating scenarios in which they start to need a pen. And so what I like to do inside of our messaging and marketing is create those scenarios where they're like, okay, I need to solve this problem. Or I need to get that product. And a lot of it is based off of problems. Like if someone wants to write you a $200 check and you don't have a pen, guess what? That's a pretty big problem. And if your celebrity that you love is over there and you want to get their autograph and you don't have a pen, that is a pretty big problem. And so what happens is when we can uncover these problems, accurately talk about the problems, remind people that they are stuck in a problem, that we understand their problem, we understand why the problem is occurring, it starts to create an internal desire and demand. And so what I start to look at is what is a problem that the thing I want them to buy can actually solve. And so a lot of our marketing and messaging is stems from problems. So if you can find the problem that people are willing to pay to get fixed, you're already going to be ahead of the game or ahead of everyone else. And there's a story I like telling, and you may have heard it, especially if you're a student, is about this guy walking down the sidewalk. And he's walking down the sidewalk and he hears a dog whimpering, and he looks off to his left and he sees a dog sitting on a porch with the owner sitting next to the dog. And the dog's whimpering and whimpering. And the guy on the sidewalk asks the owner, like, why is the dog whimpering? And the guy says, well, he's sitting on a nail. And the guy on the sidewalk asks, well, why doesn't he get up and move? And the owner says, well, it doesn't hurt bad enough yet. And that's the problem, is if you're not able to create demand, you may not be tackling or solving a big enough problem. And if I go back to the pen example and I said, hey, I would really love to have your autograph. And they said, oh, so I don't have a pen. You say, well, do you want to buy this pen off me for $2? Chances of them saying yes are probably no, because there's no benefit. It's not a big problem to them. Why would they? They're like, no, I'm not going to pay you $2 to buy a pen that I can sign. Like, you buy the pen. And so some of us are finding or don't understand the problems, or we're picking the wrong problems. We're trying to solve problems that people aren't willing to pay for. So you want to be very clear on what problems you're solving and will people actually pay for them. Okay, the next way that we start to create demand, one of the things that I love doing is using what we call the struggling avatar and the future-paced hero. And this is getting people to self-identify. You're not telling them they're at a certain place. They're going, oh, yep, that's me. I'm at that place. And then getting them to recognize where they want to go. And this is kind of like creating a demand gap. And we like to do this inside of marketing. So inside of our messaging ecosystem. So what we like to do, and I like doing it on webinars as well, is we create an identity called the struggling avatar. And this is an identity that people will eventually say, oh, that's me. And the way we get them to say, oh, that's me, is by understanding the problems, the mistakes they're doing to cause the problems, and the mistakes they're doing to try to fix the problems that don't work. And in our marketing, our messaging ecosystem, our brand, our content, or a webinar, every time we mention a problem, a mistake, we say, oh, you're the struggling avatar. Like for me, it's the unheard entrepreneur. You're the unheard entrepreneur if you're doing X, Y, and Z. If you're doing this, you're making this mistake, da, 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 da. And so as people start to sit inside of my ecosystem or my webinars or whatever it may be, sales mechanisms, they start to self-identify going, oh my God, I'm the unheard entrepreneur. I am that struggling avatar. So that's what we want your audience to do as well. I want your audience to come to their own conclusion that they are the struggling avatar, but that has to be done through specific language. You have to accurately describe and specifically describe who they are, what they're doing, what their problems are. And then what we do is we start to talk about the future pacing. Here's what this could be done through testimonials. This could be done through you just painting the picture, but it's things like, Johnny came into our process and he was struggling with da da da. He was the unheard entrepreneur, and he became a new generation entrepreneur, a future pace hero, and he was able to have this result, this result, this result. Or when I talk about mistakes, I say, hey, when these mistakes and problems are solved, here's what you start to experience in your life. And these start to come up when you are and I just named the future pace hero, when you are the new generation entrepreneur or whatever the future paced hero may be. And so what starts to happen is inside a webinar or sales mechanism or inside your brand, they start to recognize, wow, I'm over here. I'm as the unheard entrepreneur, and I want to be the future paced hero. I want to be the new generation entrepreneur. So what it starts to do is create a demand gap. And when we can start to create a demand gap, we start to become the thing that bridges the gap. We start to become the method from them going from struggling avatar to future paced hero. Okay. So another way that I like to create demand, this will be the kind of the final piece to this, to step number one or technique number one, is using what I call the one and more technique. Now, just so you guys know, and all you NGM students, new generation mastery students out there, know that we have so many different tools for you to create demand, and one and more method, and you're struggling avatar and future paced hero. It's just one or two methods in order to do this. There's so many different ways to do this, and we have them all inside of our program. But I want to talk about the one and more method right now, because the one and more method is incredibly powerful, and people, unless they know what it is, they'll never know that you're using it or doing it. And so what I like to do is inside of a webinar, let's just go with webinar, because we teach webinars and we teach messaging. So let's go with webinar. What we like to do inside of a webinar is, well, let me go here. One of the biggest, I think, pain points that people have with webinars is like transitioning to the pitch. They feel awkward. They don't know how to make the transition. Even in the training, when people go through and they do a webinar, a lot of people are so nervous to they're like, I have to add so much value and I can only do that through information. I'm gonna give out so much information. And then I'm gonna I feel really awkward when I transition to a pitch. But we want all of it seamless. We don't want a webinar to be done in the form of chunk, meaning intro, right or wrong, right place if, teaching, pitch. We want everything working seamlessly. And so for me, one of the ways we do this is when I teach, well, first of all, we let people know there is going to be a pitch. I'm going to talk about that next. Inside of a webinar, we let them know there is going to be a pitch. But also I'm talking about my program while I teach. And we use a process called the 1 and more method. And the 1 and more method is basically, I'm going to give you this one step right now, or I'm going to give you this one framework right now. But there's 9 other ways to do this inside of our program. And this is great because inside of your sales mechanisms, especially if you're doing a webinar, if you tell them there's an offer coming at the beginning of the webinar, and then you reference, hey, I'm going to teach you this one thing, but there's more over here. I'm going to teach you this one thing, there's more over here. Well, then it's not very awkward. They understand, okay, that's part of the offer, part of the program, but at least I'm getting one right now. And in fact, I just used the 1 and more method on you guys 30 to 60 seconds ago when I said there's a bunch of different ways inside of NGM to create demand, and I'm only giving you 1 or 2 right now. That's the 1 and more method. And so anytime I teach or talk about things or even do a podcast episode like this, I'm always saying look, I'm going to give you guys one thing right now, but I have 8 different ways to do this inside of NGM. And it's true. We have so many ways to create demand inside of NGM. But what starts to happen is over time, as people hear this, I'm getting one thing now, there's more over here, one thing now, there's more over here. It starts to create demand for the offer. So when we start to create a brand, and we have a really killer problem that people are willing to pay for, we start to have a future-paced hero, a struggling avatar. There starts to be a demand gap. And then we also start to use the 1 and more method and mention NGM or our program. What starts to happen is they go, oh my gosh, I'm over here as the struggling avatar. I have a little bit of what's going on. Brandon said there's this thing called NGM, and that's how I can use this NGM thing to become the new generation mastery, or the future-paced hero. So what starts to happen, and by the way, this doesn't all need to be in one piece of content. This can happen throughout 4 pieces of content, 1 podcast episode, 1 webinar, multiple webinars, 1 sales mechanism. But when you watch our launches and things this is what I do. And we talk about, here's the struggling avatar, here's the future-paced hero. Talk about this thing NGM, and what starts to happen is NGM becomes the gap from struggling avatar to future-paced hero. Then I talk about problems. So when I want to sell the pen, for example, I create a problem where a pen is necessary. So I talk about very specific problems you're having because you don't have NGM yet. I never say you don't have NGM, but I talk about these problems. I do struggling avatar, I do future-paced hero, I do the 1 and more method, and it creates this effect of demand creation. And so as people sit inside my ecosystem, my webinars, my video series, or whatever it may be, there starts to become some sort of demand for my product. And this is how we get people to go, oh, hey, can I just pay you now? Or why do we have to wait? Just take my money. When does your card open? We get people DMing us. And so when you can master this, you start to create a huge amount of demand. And this is nothing more than just really effective communication. So if you're going to pitch something to someone, why are we waiting to the very end to try to trick them? Oh, okay, cool. I'm going to drop this bomb on you that you now have an offer in front of you that if you want everything else, now you have to pay me. It's no, just be open and upfront about it. But let's be also intentional with how we're doing it so that we can communicate in the way that humans process information so that we can elicit demand. And here's the thing. If you're choosing the right problems, they should be problems that your product is going to solve. And that means when we start to use problems in our upfront marketing, we attract people that we know we can help. And we also know that no one's really going to enter our funnel if they're not having that problem. So it means everyone entering our funnel is basically someone that we can help. And that's the most beautiful thing, is if someone is coming into your funnel that you can help, you want to do everything in your power to make sure that they get the help that they need. And so proper communication to talk about the transformation you'll get or they will get is absolutely vital. And that's why I love all this demand creation stuff. So let's move into number 2. Sales technique number 2 is all about objections, because we get that all the time. How do we overcome objections? And I got to be honest with you guys, overcoming objections is one of the easiest things in the world. It really is. And you have to understand, when someone has an objection, their expectation is for you to defend yourself. I don't want you to defend yourself. As soon as you start defending yourself, you've already lost. What you want to do is lean into the objections and then talk about the consequences if they don't get that thing fixed. Here's what I mean by this is, if someone tells me that my price is expensive, if they said my price is expensive, I would say, you're right, it is expensive. I lean into it. I admit you are right. It is. And what most people do is they'll go into defense mode. Well, it's worth it because of da-da-da-da-da. And they start justifying and explaining why it's worth that price. And if you're doing that, you've already lost. Even if you're having a sales conversation with someone and they bring up this idea of price, they likely already know everything you're going to say when you try to explain. Well, we have 10 modules. We have all these group coaching. Like, they already know that. They're not bringing up price because they don't think they're getting enough modules or videos or bonuses or understand what it's about. They're bringing up price because they're concerned about how much money they have to put out, not really about the program. And so what you want to do is you want to reframe this inside of their head. And the easiest ways to get them to a reframe is just by leaning into the objection in the first place. So let's give you that example. If someone told me, Brandon, wow, your price is, your program's $8,000 or whatever it is, that's really expensive. And I say, it is really expensive. You're right. It is really expensive. And I totally understand that. But let me explain. Well, let me tell you why we charge that price. I charge that price, and I admittedly charge an expensive price because I don't want that many people in my program. I don't want that many people in my program because I want to be able to show up and give more of my own time and more support to the people in the program. I can't do that if I have 1,000 people in the program. So we intentionally have a high price to keep the amount of members low and allow me to give you more time. And it sounds like you're the type of person who wants to break past your webinar plateau. So do you think that your chances of breaking past your webinar plateau are going to happen when you have more of my time or less of my time? Well, Brandon, probably more of your time. Well, of course. And that's why we charge the price. If you want to go somewhere else where they charge less and you have to fight for the person's attention, that's totally fine. You should go do that. And I'm willing to bet the person doesn't have the amount of experience that we have or the philosophy or understandings that we have. So you get more understandings, you get more help and from someone who has more experience, and you get more time. But we have to charge a higher price for that. But ironically, the thing is when you have more of my time and more access, more things, you actually make more money too. So do we want to focus on the price of the program, or do we want to focus on you making more money and getting more of my time? And that's kind of a long-winded answer there, but that's kind of what I'm talking about, is we want to lean into it and then we reframe everything. Okay. The way I like to do this on webinars, this is so important on webinars, is like, a lot of people will do the whole, is this right for, this is not right for. I don't like to do this is right for you if. I like to start off by like, here's the problems we're solving, here's what's going on, da 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 da. And then I'll stop and I'll say, look, I want to be honest with you guys, this is not right for the person who whines, moans, and complains when someone gives you 60 minutes of their best information and then makes an offer to help you on a deeper level. Look, guys, I've been doing this for 10 years. It's impossible for me to take 10 years of knowledge and put it into one 60-minute presentation. And it's probably impossible for you to do the same thing to your clients. But I promise you, I will give you A, B, and C today. And with ABC, you will be able to do X, Y, and Z. And For those of you who feel like you want more help and more support, we will have an offer and an opportunity for you to get that help and support at the end of today's webinar. So if that's okay with you guys, then let's move on. And I do that like when the first 25% of our webinar, at some point in that first quarter of the webinar. And then now when I use the one and more method and things like that, and inside of webinars, they go, oh, that's the offer. That's the offer. So then when we finally get to the pitch, it's not awkward at all. They know there's an offer. They know the name of the program. They know kind of what's in it. And then we can easily transition into the pitch. But what this does is it takes away objections. So a lot of times when we do webinars, people always like, oh, it's a bait and switch. You didn't really give me a blah, 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 blah. If you guys are intentional and do your promise the right way, the title the right way, the theme the right way, you have your messaging the right way, you do that whole getting rid of objections at the beginning the right way, then there should never be the objection of like, I didn't get what I signed up for. Like you should have a small tangible promise. It's, your webinar should deliver, and you should be able to look the person in the eyes and be like, did I deliver or not? And so to give you an example of what I'm talking about is a lot of people will have like a webinar promise. It's like, learn how to lose 10 pounds in the next 7 days. And then they finish the webinar and, it's open to interpretation. You look the person in the eyes and go, did I deliver on that? And they're like, I have no idea. Some people may say yes. Some people may say no. But if instead you said, I'm going to give you the 3 steps you need to losing weight, or I'm going to give you a number 1 framework to losing 10 pounds in 7 days. Now it's, hey, did I deliver on that promise? Yes or no? And it's either you gave them the framework or you didn't. And so you want to be very intentional with the promises and things like that. Now we're getting off on a tangent, but when everything is set up, it takes away that objection of like the bait and switch. I didn't get what you promised me. It takes away the objection of like, oh, you just wanted to sell me, and da-da-da-da. It gets rid of all of those things. So the next thing is that I hear all the time is like another time-based thing. Like another objection we get is, I don't have enough time. And I say, well, I'm glad you're telling me this. You're totally right. You may not have enough time. And so I'm leaning into the objection again, and then I'm going to reframe it. You may not have enough time. This program takes time because we're talking about messaging. It's literally the foundation of everything inside of your business. And if you don't have the time to fix your business right now and set the foundation in the right place, then this isn't the right time for you to join the program, because this will take time. In order to fix the most powerful thing inside of your business, I'm telling you guys right now, it will take time and it will take dedication. And if you're not willing to do that, you're not right for my program. And what I have found is that, yeah, some people will be like, okay, cool, I'll just wait. But a lot of people will actually make the commitment right then and there and go like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'm willing to make the time. And you can even throw a line in there. It says like, look, if you're not willing to make the time to finally fix the thing that's wrong inside of your business, you're just going to continue dealing with that. And that's fine if you want to continue dealing with it. But are you really how long are you willing to just say you don't have enough time? And in order, if you commit the time now and you fix your business, who knows, maybe you'll free you up more time in the future. So you can start to reframe things after you lean into the objection. But the point is when you get an objection, one of the best things to do is to actually lean into it. It's not to fight it, not to overcome it, not to show what's, something else is more important. I think a lot of people want to fight objections or battle objections or overcome objections. Just lean into it, admit whatever their objection is, and then reframe it. It's one of the easiest ways to do things. So it's one of my favorite sales objections. And we use this all the time. And what I have found is if you are having a sales conversation with someone based on a problem, then they almost always, when you lean into the objection, will end up buying. And it has to be a problem that they're ready to pay to get fixed. So what I like to say to people too on sales calls or even webinars is I say like, look, I know that you have a problem going on right now. And I also know that if it's a big enough problem, you'll pay whatever you need to pay to get in. And maybe this just isn't a big enough problem for you right now. It's not a big enough problem that you're willing to pay for. And that's totally fine. But the chances are that this problem's not going to go away. And you're going to have to pay to get it fixed at some point, or go and get it figured it out yourself. And you can even say it like on the webinar. I know there's a lot of people on this call right now that have this problem, and it is a big problem, and they're willing to pay to get it fixed. Some of you just aren't, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for those of you who are willing to pay to get this problem fixed because it is a big enough problem, then we want to go have you go to this link over da-da-da-da-da. But for those of you who are willing to just deal with this problem, I really hope that today's webinar was able to help you and get you onto the right path of getting it fixed. And that's the thing you guys have to realize, is that when you find a problem that's big enough, people will pay whatever. I don't like using this example, but it shows what I'm talking about. It's like if your child was sick with cancer and was going to die, and you needed to pay $50,000 to save their life, like you're probably going to do whatever you need to do, or take out a loan or whatever to get that $50,000. But if someone came up to you and said, "Hey, I have a $50,000 coaching program that can help you build landing pages," like you're probably not going to do that, because building landing pages isn't a big enough problem. You would rather keep the money and not learn this landing page thing than to pay the money. But when your kid's sick, you would rather have your kid alive than have the money. So you're willing to pay. And so sometimes a lot of people just don't pick right problems when it comes to marketing. But going back to number 2, we want to lean into objections. I don't know how we got on that topic, but anyways, lean into objections. So let's recap where we're at before we get into the final one. We want to create demand, and we want to lean into objections. The next one is pretty easy, and this one works so well. This is also probably something if you're a coach, because this is a great coaching technique as well. But pacing and repeating things back to people is very important. So when we do sales calls, for example, part of our sales training, I tell the coaches is start with the problems. Ask them, why are you considering buying? What's going on in your life or your business right now? Specifically, tell us the specific things that you're hoping that this program will solve for you. And then we write it down. Have the coaches write it down. When we get to the end of the sales call, I tell the coaches, don't repeat back or tell them they're a right fit or they should get in the program because of all the benefits in the program. Don't tell them what the program's going to do or the modules. Tell them they're a right fit and repeat back all the problems that they said in the beginning of the call. So if someone said, as long as they're true. And so I said, for example, if someone says, well, I just don't get any engagement on my content. I don't have a very good workflow, and I just can't seem to hire any editors. Well, when we get to the end of the sales call, we say, hey, you're right for NGM, because we specifically help and have a workflow process in there. It's designed to help create engaging content, and you absolutely need editors. We have a whole system in there to help you to hire editors. Now, it does way more than that, but we clearly solve all 3 of those big problems. And I'm just repeating back what's in there. Now, if someone would have told me, I want to join the program because of X, Y, and Z, and also because I want to learn how to run Facebook ads, I'm not going to repeat back to them, hey, you're right fit because you want to run Facebook ads, because we don't cover that in the program. I mean, we talk about through plays and stuff like that, but you get the point. We only repeat back the things that we actually solve, but I don't just list off everything. I repeat back exactly what's going on. Also, we want to build rapport. We want to build trust with our audience. So when we create a safe space and we match their tones, we match their emotions, we match whatever, and we repeat back what they're saying, I understand this is really hard. I've been there too. This is not a fun feeling. I totally feel for what you're going through. It starts to build rapport. It starts to open up a space where they're more open. They're going to be able to form more trust with you as well. It brings more relevance and safety and understanding between you and the person you're talking to. Now, we like to do this even within our brand. So I like to do these things within the brand. So hopefully you guys notice from time to time on podcast episodes or in webinars, when I talk about problems, I also talk about the emotions, and I can feel for it and I understand it. That's all part of pacing. It's like pacing the audience. It's repeating back the audience. It's building rapport with the audience. It's creating a safe space. It's showing them that they're validated, that they're understood. And so, yeah, you can do this in one-on-one conversations, but you can do this within your entire brand. And I always refer back to the holistic psychologist because I think she's so great with her communication. She does this inside inside of her content. Like even my wife will read something. She's like, wow, I finally feel heard. She understands what I've been through or what I went through. That's all pace. It gets someone, and she likes the holistic psychologist, even though she's never met her before. Why? Because the holistic psychologist content holds that space. It paces you. It shows that you're understood. It repeats back your situation, your problems, the mistakes that have happened. It repeats back all of that stuff and gets you to a place of like, wow, I get that this person gets me. This person has a safe space. This person gets it. They get me. And so that's what we want is that pacing and the repeating back of things, because it starts to build rapport. It makes them feel understood and validated and starts to form more trust. So those are 3 things that I like to use when it comes to sales. I use these in one-on-one conversations. I use these on sales pages. I use these in sales mechanisms. I use this in brand and messaging. We use them all over the place. So you can start to use them all over the place as well. So again, it was learning how to create demand and subconscious demand, which means that they just automatically feel like I need this and I need it now. Lean into objections. So in order to overcome the objections, lean into them. And then pacing and repeating are my top 3 sales techniques that we've used in 2022. We've actually been using them for a really long time, and we will continue to use in the future. So if you have any questions on this, DM me on Instagram, let me know. Otherwise, I will chat with y'all later, and see you on the next episode. Take care.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.